was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
Its name is Worldwide Plaza, and it rises above the west side of Manhattan in a neighborhood called Clinton. It's the centerpiece of a huge project that includes townhouses, shops, theaters, a plaza, and a residential tower. Height, nearly 800 feet with 47 floors. Usable space, more than the Empire State Building. But like all skyscrapers, it started out small, as just a few ounces of paper drawings. To some, the architect, David Childs of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, is the building's real father. But then there are 150 other people who worked with Childs on designing the building. And what about William Zeckendorf Jr., the real estate developer, and his partners who paid all the bills? And let's not forget the construction project manager, Dominic Fonte, who watched over the building every day. Or the hundreds of people who actually raised it. Of course, with so many parents, there are bound to be fights.
I want a letter to O&M saying, you owe us 5 weeks delay. He delayed the whole core and shell of this effing building 5 weeks. Please write the letter.
But they always forgive and forget in the end. In the next 5 programs, we'll see why a conflict over the color of a brick threatens to bring the project to a halt. Why a single tenant is so important it can demand that the 3rd floor be called the 4th floor. Why a trip to Venice turns into a nightmare back in Manhattan. And why the lack of a budget can bring on a fit.
When the hell are we going to even put them together to tell Skidmore they go ahead and design this way, or tear the drawings up?
This is the story, then, of how to design and build a skyscraper in 4.5 years. That's 110 years faster than it took the Egyptians to finish the pyramids at Giza. It's a tale of technology, and art, and money. But above all, it's the story of the people who built it. For this is one of the world's largest handmade objects. In late 1984, a 4-acre parking lot in Manhattan stretches out from 8th to 9th Avenue between 49th and 50th Street. It has its cars, trucks, and minivans too. But this is a parking lot with a difference. It's worth $100 million. To spend that kind of money, you have to picture a future in which this patch of asphalt becomes a new commercial and residential center, with a skyscraper towering above where Chevys now roam. Developer Bill Zeckendorf Jr. saw the possibilities, but that's not too surprising. His instincts have been honed over a lifetime of work in the real estate business. He began his career in the 1950s in the firm of his father, William Zeckendorf Sr., a legendary developer whose rise and fall was the stuff of a Hollywood miniseries.
He was very flamboyant. He probably had the best real estate mind of his time, very shrewd. But as we all know, that he overexpanded at a point, and his company got into financial difficulties back in the 62, 63 time. In comparison to what was going on in the development of cities at that time, he was way, way ahead of his time. And from the standpoint of sheer size and importance, that there's nobody today that really comes close.
Zeckendorf learned from his father's mistakes. He especially knows that what makes a huge investment attractive in 1984 may not be true years later when the building opens. But it's a risk Zeckendorf is willing to take. So he spends several $1 million more here at the New York offices of Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. SOM is the nation's largest architectural firm and one of the world's most prestigious, with broad experience in skyscraper design. The principal architect of Worldwide Plaza is David Childs. He begins work in early 1985.
It is a frustrating profession because unlike most of the visual arts, one does not deal in the final medium. A sculptor sculpts the sculpture and the painter paints the canvas. But in architecture, you do everything remotely. It's all done with magic, mirrors, and we build models that are supposed to look like the real thing. And we do drawings that are two-dimensional, but we are, by the trickery that Giotto taught us of perspective, we make it look like 3 dimensions. And so it's all remote. You must be dealing with the things third hand in order to try to explain them to your client. And that's the other aspect of architecture, which is different from painting and painting, which if somebody likes it, they buy it. One can't afford to build the building and hope to find the client.
The process of designing the building for the client begins with preliminary design drawings like this one. Next, a scale model is made. With each major change in design, a new model is created. Childs and his team also use sophisticated computer imaging to try out different ideas for the building. These CAD/CAM images can demonstrate in seconds how each change will affect the look of the building. The relationship between Worldwide Plaza and the surrounding area can be shown too. Members of the community are especially concerned that the skyscraper blend in with the neighborhood. The skyscraper must also satisfy zoning requirements limiting height, bulk, and density. The building's shoulders, for example, had to be scaled back to fit within these lines. As the process of shaping and reshaping Worldwide Plaza continues, David Childs refines his vision of the building as a modern interpretation of classical skyscraper design.
What I'd like to do with this building is to have it be the perfect example of what we all imagine around the world as the great American classical skyscraper. And to do that because it will always be seen in such a prominence from around the whole city and from New Jersey as well, I've designed this in the classical 3-part piece that all the great skyscrapers of New York have taken. And that is the base of the building, the shaft in the middle, and then the great exuberant crown, much like a column, at the very top. Let me talk about the base first. The bottom of the building is designed with a series of low elements, 60 feet high, in keeping with the scale of the Clinton community, those lower buildings that frame the surrounding area. But in the center of that piece is a great, warm, welcoming entranceway to the arcades and to the office building itself, flanked on either side by shops and lights and detail that gives the pedestrian an interesting animated walk as he goes by the building. The main centerpiece of the building is the shaft, simple in its brickwork with clear glass windows throughout. And on the bottom of that shaft, where its very large floors were necessary, I've allowed the vertical thinner section of the shaft to ride all the way down. Because this building, with its much larger floor plates than the classical traditional skyscraper downtown, it needs to be thin and given a vertical aspect to it. And to do that, these fluting pieces, like a column, the darker vertical elements rising through the middle, give it a pinstripe, like a suit, to keep that elegance and thinness all the way through it. The edges are clipped at the corner, chamfered back. So again, you read the thinner profile as it rises up through the building, finally to come to the crown of the top of the building. And here is the symbol that we all will remember as we enter the city or drive around through it, a true, thick, copper-clad roof, green as it will age over the years, great windows that not only let air into the mechanical systems, but are lighted from behind, giving these spokes of light that will shine out over the city, and then culminating at its top in this lantern, the lighthouse image itself, a clear crystal pyramid with the light inside that is that final point of light that describes this building not only for its project and for Midtown, but for the city itself.
But even after the major design elements are set, SOM's work has only just begun. Dozens of detailed drawings must now be prepared by the staff. From the start of the project, SOM's engineers have also been working along with the architects. Their plans show the major structural elements of the building. The mechanical elements of Worldwide Plaza, from the elevators to the faucets, are designed by Cosentini Associates, an engineering firm hired by the developers.
We are the designers of the, how can I express it? We are the designers of the heart and veins of the building. If you take the architect and say he designs what the skin looks like, what the face looks like, what the hair looks like, the cosmetic portion. Then there's the structural engineer. He designs the bones of the body, how to keep all these things together. And then along comes what I consider the most important part, which nobody wants to know about, which is the heart and the pump and the valves and the veins that make the body tick. We design the mechanical systems and the electrical systems and the elevatoring systems and the lighting systems, and the plumbing systems, all the things that are very mundane that nobody wants to know about, but without them the building can't function.
The company responsible for turning the drawings into reality is HRH Construction. The HRH team has to get everything built on time and on budget. So it's brought in during the design stage to tell the architects what's practical and what isn't, from the window glass to the elaborate brickwork.
We've probably worked with the architect on 5 or 6 different designs of brickwork to work out a compromise between what he would like to see and what it will cost, until we finally, I think we all got just tired of it and came up with one that we could at least build reasonably expeditiously and at a cost that won't make the owner get ill. Sometimes, some of these trades get over our knowledge, and we've invited various bricklaying contractors into it, in addition to our own expertise, to look at the plans and try and work out with us and with the architect what would be the most cost-effective way to build it. We went from many colors of brick and many different sizes of brick and different shapes of brick into fewer of each category to permit it to, that will help it move faster and cost less. And I don't think I have an unhappy architect either.
So each aspect of the design is examined from a number of perspectives, ranging all the way from the artistic to the financial.
Our practice here at Skidmore, Owings Merrill is different from others in which we believe very much in that team approach to design. And that team approach is not only within our own office, but involves the contractor who will build it and be liable for building it, and the developer, and the bankers who will finance it, and the tenants who finally move into it. So it's an entire group of people who come together to create something which not one of them by themselves can do.
You could never give anybody a firm answer as to when will the project be finished.
To pay for all this teamwork, Bill Zeckendorf and the other developers spend most of their time raising money.
We have, within just the last couple of weeks, been able to secure Manufacturers Hanover and the Irving Trust Company, each for $85 million. When you start adding that up, you'll see we're over the 50% mark, which is very good in such a short period of time.
If anything, when we started on
The total cost of the project is $550 million, almost all of which will be borrowed at a staggering cost. About 30% of that will go for interest payments alone. But if everything goes right, it will be money well spent.
During those first 10 years, probably the return is in the 11-12% level. And then hopefully when you get beyond the 10th year, you start getting up to very substantial returns, which would be 15 to perhaps as high as 20%. But you don't make a killing on any one building, particularly an office building, unless you're very lucky enough to have a major user coming along in the early stages, take the entire building, which means you have no risk on the downside. And you know, those things happen, but they happen very seldom. But it's a reasonably modest return. It's really, the money is on a much longer term basis.
We've tentatively said that...
Zeckendorf knows, however, that there won't be any long-term profits unless he convinces the banks to lend him the full $550 million. He'll have to find at least one major tenant before construction begins. One of Zeckendorf's vice presidents, Terry Soderberg, started looking for likely prospects the day the project was launched.
It would be the mid-high-rise bank, which is 27 to 37, plus the next two floors, which will give them 400,000 square feet long-term lease.
Soderberg had one major problem. Worldwide Plaza was planned for an area of Manhattan that was on the outer fringe of the Midtown Business District, just north of Times Square. Nevertheless, a major advertising firm, Ogilvy and Mather, decided the future might be here for the right kind of deal. To some members of the Ogilvy board, however, the company and Clinton, the Skyscrapers neighborhood, were not an obvious match, to say the least. In grittier times, Clinton was known as Hell's Kitchen. So the executives who wanted to move had to convince the ones who didn't.
We literally had our management go, stand in the parking lot, and walked up and down the parking lot, looking at the buildings and trying to do exactly what we were calling the envisionary work. What would it be when that crane goes down and a building goes up? When these buildings, which had been promised to be renovated, would be renovated? When that porno theater would be sold, or would it be sold? And we spent a half an hour literally in that parking lot and huddled afterwards in the parking lot so we would soak up the neighborhood.
A couple of them walked it at night and came back and said, no, no.
That's right.
Eventually, the naysayers came around, attracted by advantages like this private lobby, not to mention a share in the building's profits. Even so, the move seemed risky.
It is by far the biggest decision the company has ever made.
Yeah, or ever will make.
Or ever will make. And if we were off in any respect, it could hurt the business for 10 years.
But unless City Hall gives its final approval to Worldwide Plaza, Ogilvy and Mather may not get to move at all. It isn't a question of whether the property will be developed. Countless earlier meetings decided that. Instead, it's a question of whether Zeckendorf has made enough concessions to the surrounding community to keep the project as big as it is.
Whoever wishes to be first, please step right up.
This is really the first time massive luxury-priced development has come over to 9th Avenue on this kind of scale. This project is going to significantly increase the luxury-priced development pressures on Clinton. I don't think anyone at all...
To reach this last stage in the approval process, Zeckendorf has agreed to renovate 132 apartments in the neighborhood and to modernize the local subway station. But there are still residents who dread the idea of a skyscraper in their midst.
My name is Robert Duncan. I've been a member of Clinton for 19 years. The heart of a city is its neighborhoods. The pulse is its people. Redevelopment is a disease which is strangling the pulse. We in Clinton are not afraid of progress, but this progress should not be at any cost. The displacement of people through speculation and environmental pollution. We wish to retain our current status as a multi-ethnic, poor and middle-class neighborhood. Thank you.
In the end, however, it is economic reality that decides the fate of Worldwide Plaza, as Rob Schubert, SOM project manager, explains.
Do I think the community got what it's best for? No. The reason I think that this project is too big, but it has nothing to do with Bill Zeckendorf or anything. It has to do with the economics of the United States. The cost of this land mandated a certain size building, okay? If you're going in to make a profit, you have to build a certain size building. Is it totally appropriate for what Manhattan is? I don't think so. I think it could have been a bit smaller. I think given the program that we had, I think we did a marvelous job at trying to blend the Clinton community and Midtown together. It's gonna happen. And to a certain extent, I look at the Clinton community and the dealings with them with a bit of sorrow, because that community is going to change. Hell's Kitchen's going to get yuppified real quick.
And so Worldwide Plaza is about to become the newest and biggest kid on the block.
Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten Island. Resolution adopted.
There are a lot of ribbon cuttings and a lot of groundbreakings, as it were, and we're not always so pleased. This is an occasion that's very pleasant indeed. Thank you very much.
The official groundbreaking ceremony takes place 4 months later. It's a formality that everyone attends, but few take seriously, in part because all the action so far has taken place inside 100 offices throughout the city. It's been 2 years of hard work before this first good photo opportunity could be arranged.
How do you know you
Throw it in the middle. Let me count. 1, 2, 3.
For all the major players, the stakes are high. If David Child's design doesn't measure up, his reputation could be tarnished. If the building fails financially, Bill Zeckendorf and his partners could lose their shirts. And if it doesn't get built on time, Dominic Fonte, the day-to-day construction manager, could lose his mind. From his headquarters on the site, Fonte will oversee every detail of construction for HRH. Any major delay could cost millions.
We're under so much pressure. It's different from a hospital or from IBM. IBM I consider them very starchy organization, okay? You cannot get excited, or else that's unprofessional. If you get excited, you shouldn't show emotions. And here we have to show emotions. If you keep things inside, within yourself, you will very soon develop ulcers, and you will very soon realize that this business is not for you, because you cannot handle the pressure. There's a lot of pressure. You have a pressure of money, you have a pressure of time, you have a pressure of coordination. And these three working together built up this steam inside the kennel.
In November 1986, construction finally begins, with crossed fingers all around. The first task is to clear the site, but it's not as easy as it seems. A network of cables, pipes, and sewers has lain under Manhattan for generations. And somewhere, there's a city official who won't let them be touched without his or her approval. So if you want to dig them up, or move them, or replace them, you have to get a permit. Or 2, or 20.
In the city of New York, you open up the street, it's like a bowl of spaghetti. There's a lot of cable, a lot of conduit, a lot of pipe. There's so many that if you call the specific agency who put the pipe down there 40, 50 years ago, first of all, they say, well, it's not mine. They don't even know if it's theirs. Second of all, if they think it's theirs, by the time they check and find out that it is theirs, it's not theirs, it will be at least another 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm dealing here with people. I mean, I'm laughing now because I think I have to laugh to keep my sanity. But it's frustrating. It's crazy. And today, still, we don't have approval from the water department because they don't have time. I mean, they have so many other projects they have to do with. Why is ours more important than everybody else's? That's fine. Their attitude is okay. I mean, that's the way they want to do it. But they don't realize that this is one of the biggest projects in the city of New York. I would hope that someone will look at the drawings for at least an hour. All it takes them is an hour to look at the drawing and say, yes, this location of the water pipe is correct. Proceed with it. I don't have that yet. A year and a half has gone by. I don't have it.
As Fonte grapples with city officials, a subcontractor called Delma handles the excavation. "75 trucks will be needed each day for almost 4 months just to carry away the immense amount of rock and earth on the site. 18 feet below the surface, the excavators reveal the bedrock on which the skyscraper's foundation will rest. Core samples taken earlier helped determine just how far down the excavators would have to go. These drilling machines are preparing the way for the next stage of the process, drilling holes for the blasting team. The team's job is to blast away another 12 feet of bedrock to create a hole large enough, deep enough, and level enough to support the building. Dynamiting in the middle of crowded Manhattan is a job for seasoned professionals. But the men who work in the trade sound more like ball players than blasters.
It takes a while of practice. Of course, some people are better than others. You know, you just a feeling. You got to feel it. You got to have a little knowledge, plus you got to feel it. You know, if you don't feel it, you know, that's what makes one better than another. You know, that's all.
It's a dangerous job nonetheless. The holes for the dynamite must be positioned carefully so that the explosion blows the rock towards the middle of the site rather than up in the air or out into the street, where hundreds of potential lawsuits are innocently walking. It's all very contained and controlled. Even the pace is slow and measured. Blasting takes place only once or twice an hour. After the holes have been filled with dynamite, heavy steel mats, each weighing about a ton, are draped over the explosion site to contain the blasted fragments of rock. While the hole gets deeper, the architects at SOM are still trying to finalize plans for many parts of the project. Sometimes they're only a step or two ahead of the builders.
The escalator above, right, that space.
Yeah, right.
We can use some space under that for storage, can't we?
Yeah, sure.
We should be able
A lot can happen to increase costs as drawings become reality. Inevitably, there is a close and often tense relationship between, on the one hand, the architects and the construction managers who take no financial risk, and the developers who take a great deal. The man Bill Zeckendorf has named to watch over his investment is Jack Schuster.
We have 1,600,000 square feet of space, roughly, round figures. Construction very often is analyzed on the basis of so much a square foot. For every dollar more than the budget, we're talking about $1,600,000. If you've made a mistake, or if you have given a low budget that is $10 less than cost, which is altogether possible in the scenario that I've painted for you, we're talking about $16 million above the budget. That's a very sizable piece of change.
Communication among the architects, developers, and construction managers is one of the project's biggest problems. So the main participants meet every 2 weeks. It's here that Jack Schuster hears the latest bad news about the budget or the schedule. Today, for example, he learns of a delay in the excavation.
As of today.
Okay.
Dome is not finished as of today.
What are you telling me then? That the schedule is not in effect?
The sequencing is in effect. The actual dates have slipped somewhat.
How much have they slipped?
Dome should be out of timeline 1 for about 2 weeks.
I think you better go on record with him telling him that if anything happens from here on in, that further delays this water line because of his initial delay in starting, it's going to be his responsibility. Orestes told us all.
Orestes is worried about the fact that...
I know what Orestes is worried about. He put it in letter form. He told us that he was concerned that if push came to shove, and if we didn't start that in a hurry, the water department might wake up to the fact that we're doing it with a slight revision and hold up the whole goddamn installation.
Then we're going to work 20 inches instead of 30 inches.
That's exactly right, okay? And you better go on record with Delmont telling him that their schedule, that we didn't do anything to delay, is now behind, and if anything happens with the building, with the water department, that's going to hurt us, is that they better be prepared to be responsible for it. That's the end of the subject. Change the subject.
The next problem on the agenda is a delay in getting a budget for some of the building's steel.
I'm getting prices for my subcontractors.
We've been getting prices. The damn thing was issued how long ago?
No, just...
The basic pavilion has been out for a long time, structural steel.
No, that's what should be.
Who cares about the structural steel? I mean, put a price in per square foot. The structural steel isn't going to change one damn bit, no matter what the shape takes.
Sure will.
Not of any consequence. We're worried about the ornamental. We're worried about the roof.
That's right.
You see, we're worried about the glass.
And all these prices are coming in now.
When? When the hell are we going to be able to put this together to see, to tell Skidmore they can go ahead and design this way, or tear the drawings up?
The drawings we only received no more than a week and a half ago.
What drawings?
2 weeks maybe, and I've sent them out.
The drawings that you got in the latest one, you have at least a month.
No.
At least a month. All we want is a budget.
Okay.
I mean, we want to know whether or not we can afford to build it that way, or tear the drawings up and come up with just an ordinary, brick box.
We'll do a budget.
Get a budget number.
Easy.
I mean, but a decent one, a rational one.
Okay.
When?
Okay. We will have one by at least the next meeting.
That's 2 weeks off.
A full budget, everything.
Sometimes the level of detail considered in these meetings can seem extraordinarily minute.
Lobby desk. I'm going to be asking this question every week. What's happening at the lobby desk?
We got the security information in from Wackenhut Friday. Yeah.
How many cameras do we have in the desk?
What do you want it for?
I want to get a feeling of what kind of monster I'm up against. Really.
It's going to be
How big is it 30 feet? Is it 40 feet?
Hold on a second. Why? This isn't the biggest building in the world. It's not the most complicated building in the world. There are concierge... I don't think I would be successful if I said, well, it's his money and he's got a lot more than I, and therefore he can spend it. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. We're talking about every project, every subcontract that runs into the small ones into six-figure numbers, the big ones into seven-figure numbers, and the really bigger ones in eight-figure numbers. You make a mistake, or you're overly generous, and it would not take very long for your budget to be a piece of paper with no value. So that to do your job and earn your pay, you really have to be pressing all the time, and the only way to do that is to really do a job as though it's your own money. You know, if you save $1 million off the budget, that's $1 million that you like to think is your own money. If you, on occasion, go over budget, you lose some sleep.
Arnie Kriegel of HRH has one of the tougher tasks of the group. He has to find subcontractors who will do the job and stay within the budget. In the most intensive phase of the project, Kriegel may have to deal with 100 or more companies, sometimes talking to 3 or more at the same time.
Can I put you on hold for a minute, please? Thanks. Hello? Okay, let me give you a name for the guy to call, okay?
Because every day that goes by costs tens of thousands of dollars in interest payments, work on the site has begun as soon as possible. By mid-1987, Kriegel is ordering materials for some parts of the building that haven't been fully designed.
The construction management process in New York, and in the rest of the world, in fact, is what we call fast track, meaning that we start building the building before all the drawings are complete and all the pieces and parts are put in place. And that's where we are ongoing right now, even though we have purchased, as an example, steel, we have purchased the elevators, we have purchased excavation and foundations. There are still some architectural items that are still being designed by the team.
sealant here instead of what we...
The fast-track method leads to one of the most serious problems faced by the SOM team, a series of last-minute changes by David Childs. Months of wrangling with the developers, HRH, the tenants, and the city have already put the project team on edge. Rob Schubert sees it all.
Crabbiness, a lot of fights. People get pissed off at each other. People will start coming in more and more into this office, or I'll hear it out on the floor. God damn it, I'm not getting this information. He said, you know, I was going to get it Tuesday, here it is Friday, where the hell is it? There's a lot of that complaint.
But David Childs is undeterred.
You never stop designing, and we haven't stopped now. As much as the technical people would like to think that we've stopped, it will continue to be refined. Now, I recognize that architecture is that which is built. And in order to get it built, you must decide major decisions in proper sequencing and order. And I won't have new ideas about the top of the building. All of a sudden, let's do a dome rather than the peak. But, and particularly in the lower portions of the building where people can walk up and touch it and they see it from a 3-foot distance rather than a 700-foot distance, we need to keep refining those exact dimensions of the joints in the stonework, or what the ashtrays look like at the elevator lobbies, and all of those things are tremendously important. And as we have time, including during the review of the shop drawings, we will continue to make refinements in the design, not cost changes, but further considerations about proportions and detailing and materials and so forth.
At its crowded headquarters, Ogilvy and Mather also asks for changes as it awaits the move to Worldwide Plaza. The result is even more pressure on SOM.
They've had some second thoughts about how they'd like their lobby to function, so we've been revising our drawings. What gets tricky in that particular instance is that some of the steel has been awarded, so now we've got to change some of our drawings, stop the construction or fabrication of the steel elements, revise them, and reissue. You've got to compensate for that lack of time by working overtime, and it's tiring and frustrating. Nobody likes to change work after it's been issued.
But back at the site, the construction process is moving ahead without a hitch. The excavation has been completed to a depth of 30 feet, and the next phase of the project has begun, the building of the foundation. Because it's built on solid bedrock, Worldwide Plaza can rest on what is known as a shallow foundation. In this case, a series of concrete squares called column footings. Each footing will serve as the base of a massive steel column. Together, the footings must spread the load of the entire building across a large area. At the site, concrete is about to be poured into the footing holes, which have been drilled or blasted and fitted with reinforcing steel rods to help the hardened concrete withstand stress. The concrete arrives at the site already prepared, a soupy mixture of water, sand, and crushed stone or gravel, and Portland cement, which is a combination of powdered limestone and clay. The mixture has to be just right. Too much water will weaken it. Too little will create air pockets when it hardens, thus reducing the strength of the footings. The weather and temperature can also affect it. Buildings have collapsed because of substandard concrete, so every construction site has a quality control inspector to monitor the work. First, he gets a sample from the latest batch of concrete delivered ready-mixed to the site. Then he does a number of simple tests, including taking its temperature. And the paragon of low technology called the slump test. The greater the slump, the greater the wetness.
Well, my job is to control the water ratio of the concrete, all right? I am on the job for quality control, right? I take a slump test, I make a slump. I also take an air test. I take the temperature. The temperature of the concrete has to be a certain degrees, right? In the wintertime, it shouldn't be no less than 50 degrees. Summertime, no more than 90. I take the concrete, I put it into the slump, right? I put it in like 3 layers, right? 1/3 at a time. I rot it 25 times each layer. Then after that, I strike it off, right? And I lift the slump cone within 7 to 10 seconds, right? And then I take the slump and I put it next to the concrete, and I put the rod up there,
Then I measure from the bottom of the rod to the center of the slump cone. That determines the amount of water. That's how I determine the water ratio.
So far, everything is going according to plan. But for Tony Renault, HRH is the exception, not rule.
A typical day in this business is one you can never expect. Get to the job and for some crazy reason something's going wrong. What is that going wrong? All of a sudden we realize that one of our permits maybe to work in a specific area are not completely stating exactly what we have to do. So we have maybe 20 or 30 men ready to do a job, and the city agencies will say, this permit doesn't read properly, you can't work here today. You've got 20 or 30 men to replace on the job. A lot of bucks. This business is money, dollars. And unless you can, show the dollars up front, you're out of business.
Today is a good day for Raffanello. The concrete passes inspection, and the work goes on. The footings will harden over the next 3 weeks until they are ready to receive the first steel columns, due to arrive in May. The building steel is being fabricated in Houston, some 1,600 miles away. A company called Mosher Steel has been working on the project for nearly 6 months. Mosher had to look eastward for new business because of the sad state of the local construction industry. Its $26 million bid and its reputation for quality won it the contract for the Manhattan skyscraper. The process of fabrication begins with the arrival of raw steel from Luxembourg. Most raw steel for American skyscrapers comes from overseas because it's much cheaper than American steel, even with all the transportation costs added in. Each piece is already labeled with information about its type, its size, and its weight. Mosher's job is to turn these pieces into 19,000 tons of fabricated steel, to customize each one into a column, beam, or girder that will fit perfectly into the building's skeleton. The process of fabrication really begins here in the Mosher Design Shop, where SOM's basic design drawings get turned into the fabricator's shop drawings. These detailed drawings show exactly where each piece will fit, its precise dimensions, and how it will be made. Mosher is free to design the pieces and connections so they can be made as economically and efficiently as possible within the limits of accepted engineering practice. Some of the major pieces are made to length in Luxembourg, but many pieces need to be cut with an accuracy of 1/8 of an inch. Small discrepancies in the length of every piece could add up to a major error in a building nearly 800 feet tall. Imperfections in the raw steel can be even more of a problem because they weaken it. So every piece is carefully inspected by a technician hired by Zeckendorf. Right now, he's checking for air bubbles or laminations.
Now, where the laminations come from is when you start with your original ingot. And if you have an air bubble or gas bubble in it, when the ingot is rolled, the bubble gets flattened. And the way you find it is you bounce sound through the material, and if the lamination is in there, the sound will bounce back sooner than it should. It'll show up as a reflection on the scope. You know, the whole idea behind a quality program is that you can't inspect inequality. They have to design it in and build it in.
Today, Mosher is fabricating steel for the 13th floor, even though back at the site, the foundation is still being laid. Typically, the company wants to be 5 to 6 months ahead of the construction schedule to allow time for the transportation of the steel to Manhattan and to build up the stockpile of pieces by the time erection begins. After inspection, the raw steel must be carefully measured and marked so that each bolt hole and connecting piece can be put in exactly the right place. They're about to put together a piece called a tree column with a central trunk thick enough to bear a vertical load of a couple of thousand tons. Each tree column is slightly different because it goes in a different place and supports a different load. At the foot of the tree column, a steel worker attaches a strengthening plate, which will help connect this column to the one below it during construction. And this is one of the branches of the tree, called a spandrel beam. Another beam will be connected to it when the column is in place. The spandrel beams are put on the column now to reduce construction time later in the field. The spandrel is welded to the trunk by an arc welder. The electric voltage the welder produces is so concentrated and powerful that it can create a temperature of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When the tip of the welding rod is held against the two pieces, all three begin to melt together to form a single puddle of molten steel, which is drawn slowly along the seam being welded. When the weld cools and solidifies, a permanent bond is created. For large pieces like this one, a number of passes may be made to build up the weld to the proper depth and strength. During construction, each spandrel beam in the 2-story tall column will have to be bolted to another beam. The Mosher engineers have calculated the exact number and size of the bolts needed to withstand all the forces that will converge on the connections when they're finally made. Although a safety factor is always built in, each engineer lives with the fear that his or her calculations could be wrong.
I always worry about collapse, very much so. Well, I know the two engineers in Kansas City, yes. With the Kansas City, with the Hyatt Regency. It's, in fact, I had a collapse once. I designed a beam and didn't put the proper stiffeners in, and the beam collapsed under a huge pile of gypsum. And luckily no lives were lost, but the tunnel train that burrowed underneath the gypsum certainly couldn't go through its tunnel because the tunnel height was decreased because of the beam failure. No, it's a fear, and when a structural engineer recognizes that he's got a good team behind him that's aware of public safety, aware of competency of designs, using basic laws, using the laws of God, if you will, free body diagrams, and using the principles of engineering, there's a great deal of comfort in that for all of us.
When the finished pieces pass inspection, they're loaded on barges for the long trip east. But even as steel for one part of the building goes out, changes are still being made in the design of others.
My personal opinion is that it was started too soon. And as any fast-track project like this, I would say it's fast-track in that the designs are not completed and already we're starting to buy material and make details, and there's still changes being made that I would expect revisions to come through. And the only thing it's just time and money. You got to stop and fix it. There's nowhere around it. It either has to be fixed in-house or in the field. And those revisions that we're getting late are going to have to be fixed in the field, which is just money, time and money.
Fortunately, the biggest change in the structural design was solved by SOM before it ever got to Mosher. The engineer's design called for a steel frame at the building's core, surrounded by a larger steel frame at the perimeter, with the whole structure forming a tube with its inherent rigidity. But then the architects decided to incorporate an elliptical arcade into the building. For Gary Stefik, the SOM engineer who designed the tube, the change created a major problem.
I'm curious to see how this arcade's going to be, how that's going to finish out. That was our biggest structural problem, actually, that we didn't touch on here, is because the arcade cuts through the tube. And it was presented to us as an accomplished fact. It wasn't studied, wasn't discussed at all. They came back from a city planning meeting and they had suggested doing it, and the city planning thought it was a great idea, and so we were stuck with it, even though it totally destroyed our tube at the base.
So Stefik and his colleagues came up with a plan for the arcade that looked like an ellipse, but which actually turned here and there to avoid cutting into the steel columns of the tube. Only after this new plan was approved could Mosher begin work. Finally, on May 14, 1987, the first piece of steel arrives at the site from Houston. This 8-inch thick plate will rest on one of the now hardened concrete footings to provide extra strength for the base of the first steel column.
Coming down low. Coming down. Get the fuck out. Look now. Good. Come on down. They're going to be bleeping you now. Watch it. Good. Yeah, we didn't put all the way. All right, that's the way to do it, guys. Don't wind up those anchor bolts, huh?
The steel comes in pre-cut and with both holes and nothing. There's no leeway. It can't be wrong. So when that column sits on top of that plate, and on that plate, everything is supposedly going to fit. And this has to be true for the next 800 feet. So that's the importance of getting the foundation done properly.
Every step in the assembly is marked on drawings provided by Mosher. Nothing is left to chance. The number of each piece of steel, where it belongs, and how it has to be connected must be checked and double-checked before any move is made. Now it's time to unload the first tree column, a full 20 tons of steel. Because it will stand at the base of the building, this column is one of the strongest and thickest. It will have to support a load 175 times its own weight when Worldwide Plaza is finished. The iron workers here today will stay together as a team for the next year. Soon they will be joined by men and women from 40 different trades, up to 1,000 workers at one time. But today, the family on the site is still small. Small and determined, with a quiet pride that outsiders might miss.
I don't know whether or not I would be able to say really which shoes I would like to be in. There's advantages in different positions. Obviously, I would like to be in the shoes of the architect because I could say, I designed the building. It is a monument which you built for yourself. And you could say, that's my idea, okay? So yeah, I would love that. I would really love to say that's my idea. So I would love to be in his shoes. On the other hand, I would love to be in Bill Degendorf's shoes because I could then say, that's my building. Physically, it's my building. And it's a beautiful building. So that's some satisfaction also. So it's very difficult, really, to say which shoes would you want to wear. I'm very happy with the shoes I have on now. Because when I could say, they designed it, he owns it, but I built it.
Funding for Skyscraper was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
This is PBS. Next time on Skyscraper, the steel goes up, but the bricks stay down.
Dominic, look out the window, Dominic. When do you need bricks?
I said, well, who are you to determine that I'm not ready? I want the brick, I will pay for the brick, and I will receive the brick. Just bring it to the job.
The pressure mounts and tempers flare.
He is not my friend. He is my enemy.
Time and money. Next time on Skyscraper.
Everyone loves a cliffhanger, but 13's in a tight spot. The March pledge response was $500,000 short. Next year's budgets are being planned now. Can we hang on to the same